Hi there, thank you for checking out this week's episode of Articulate Thoughts, which is a personal blog of mine where I share some thoughts, ideas, experiences, and observations about conscious dance, which is a movement practice that uses dance as a form of movement meditation or dance as a form of spiritual practice. So today's topic of discussion is finding your rhythm. And I kind of want to refer to some of the previous episodes in the past where I talk about always having a point in a conscious dance that meets some kind of resistance. So, typically a dance is an hour and a half, 2 hours, and invariably there'll be one point in the dance where I'll, hit a wall of fatigue, or I'll get distracted, or a song will come up that I do not like, or someone's dancing in a way I don't like, or there's just some sort of mental block or barrier that just kind of doesn't feel good, and I talk about the benefits of that and how it's kind of a good thing to kind of run into those things in a dance class, because it's kind of like training for real life. And when there's that point of resistance is met and recognized, how do I deal with it in that moment? So in essence, I'm kind of training my subconscious mind to how do I respond to those situations. So when it happens outside of the dance floor in the real world, I've already had some sort of experience or practice with it, or at least more practice with it. But today's episode, finding your rhythm, is just kind of like the opposite, right? So in our everyday life, we go through this spectrum of feeling good and feeling bad, and a lot of times it's very easy to miss. How often do I really check in, or how often do people in general really check in with themselves and say, does this feel good? Does this feel bad? And how did this situation kind of get to a point where I felt good or felt bad? So finding the rhythm on the dance floor is like, invariably at some point of the dance, there's going to be a good feeling. There's going to be a good song that comes up, or someone will come up to me and dance with me, and that will feel good. Or just it's come very natural to me that I've been doing the practice for about three years on a regular basis. If I go into a room and there's music playing and the intention is set for a dance, it's very easy for me to just kind of turn off my mind and tune into the music and just let my body feel the emotion and just express it and just kind of let it flow. It's very easy to find my rhythm. But I remember in the beginning it was very difficult, and I was in my head a lot, and what I usually did was find someone on the dance floor and observe a mover that was moving in a way that I liked, that I admired. I'm like, wow, that looks really cool, and I would try to emulate it. And it reminded me a lot of when I was playing a lot of music and musical instruments and writing music. I would do the same thing. I would go out there and find a piece of music that I liked and emulate it, and try to play a cover, right? And then once I got that down, then I would recreate the song in my own image and likeness, and just maybe switch up the chords a little bit, or switch up the rhythm a little bit. And the beautiful thing about dance is it really tunes you into your own body and what your body's capable of. Because when I started dancing in Calgary, I was actually dancing with a lot of professional level dancers that trained thousands and thousands of hours on the dance floor, and what they could do with their body is just something that my body, I just physically cannot do. But I was able to look at what they were doing. I'm like, wow, that it would feel good to do that. And then I would just kind of work with what my body was capable of doing, and then I would find my rhythm that way. Maybe I can't emulate it precisely to that person's capability, but I have a body, and my body can move. So how could I kind of recreate the movement and the emotion and express it in my own way? And this whole notion, it kind of goes back to some other things that kind of just philosophical concepts that keep on coming up, but the idea of that being made in the image of likeness of God, this Christian idea that was embedded to me very, very early on. But it's just like we're creators, and like we could take something and have an image in our head and kind of recreate it in our own image and likeness, and we can remix it or cover it, or just emulate things in our own capacity and our own capability and make it ours. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about dance, is because it doesn't require, like, for the most part, a lot of dance moves are not that complicated. You're not going to go into a conscious dance class and see people do cartwheels and backflips and crazy acrobatic things that most people cannot do. You're going to see people do very basic movements, but it's more so, you know, seeing someone that's in their rhythm. They're not, how to explain this. It just flowing naturally, and it feels good. It starts with a good feeling, and then it comes outwards through a movement. And it's very easy to emulate these movements because they're not high level things. It's just kind of how it's strung together, and just the tone or the energy that's coming out of the movement. And I think the really strong benefit of doing this practice is, and finding that rhythm on the dance floors. It's what I said in the beginning, but kind of flipped around. It's the ability to say, hey, this feels good, I like this, and even if it's just for 1 minute out of the entire dance, that's 1 minute in your day where you're feeling good, feeling in the groove, in your own rhythm, that you may not have if you didn't go to that dance class. And I feel like, even though the whole idea of the practice is to get out of our heads, it's good to identify this is a good feeling, and maybe trying to identify what it is exactly about that moment that feels good, and with that intellectual data, we could kind of emulate it more in our everyday life. And sometimes it's really hard, because we'll go into a dance. I go to a dance and I'll have a good dance, and I recognize I feel good, but sometimes I fall into that trap of thinking, it's this song, or it's this particular facilitator. It's all, like I'll look at all these outwardly things for why I feel good, but at the end of the day, I created that moment within myself, and I created that feeling within myself. So there's no reason to think that I don't have access to that power at any part of my day, in any moment. So I guess that's like a little bit of a deep end there, but yeah. So that's my thoughts. And if you want to try and find your rhythm, we do have a dance class tonight. Meditation moves at the Central United Church at 7 p.m. and Ruth Levin will be the one facilitating the class today, and she is quite wonderful. So I recommend it. You check it out. And yeah, so that's all I got for you guys today. And inshallah, I will see you on the dance floor.